This is very rare for me, but I'm going to start this video off with an apology. And that apology is for this camera angle that a lot of you have with the BMW iX. The issue is, of course, as of late, BMW design language. The grills have gotten larger and larger over the years, and for a lot of you, the beaver teeth that come on the BMW iX is a huge detraction from this absolutely unbelievably nice and very well built German engineered fully battery electric vehicle. Honestly, with this car, this sits very high on my list as some of my favorite large SUVs on the market. Compared to its competition, yes, it is expensive. On paper, range, 0 to 60 times, all of that is not quite up to par in the rest of the electric industry. But I tell you, once you can look past the beaver teeth and the on-paper stats, this thing is a very content-heavy, very luxurious, and absolutely well-built machine. So today we're going to be taking a look around the iX xDrive 50 here, looking at the fit and finish on the exterior in our full build quality analysis. We're going to jump inside and dive deep into the interior, talking about material choices, seeing how everything fits and feels and is put together. And lastly, we'll talk a little bit about the paint. But welcome back to another out of spec detailing video here from Clear Detailing in Northern Colorado. Let's jump into it. For a lot of folks, I think BMW has been in a weird place in the company's history. Styling has been very subjective, as it always is with vehicles, but BMW seems to just draw designs out of left field, making cars look like really nothing else on the road, but they always do strike you as BMW. I'm thinking, of course, of the iX here with the large beaver teeth grille, but one of the best looking rear ends in the electric SUV market. I'm also thinking to vehicles like the latest generation M3 and M4. A huge controversy when those cars came out, everybody going, oh my God, the grille looks absolutely terrible. What a terrible car. But realistically, you kind of grow to love these vehicles a little bit more. And I gotta say, the iX has grown on me. Now, other vehicles, like even the M2, when those first photos came out, the vehicles didn't look all that good. Then, of course, you have something like the XM, which I don't think anybody thinks is actually pretty, and probably one of the most hideous cars I've been around and have driven or even ridden in. A truly strange car that I don't think a lot of folks understand. But I do think a lot of people understand the iX, or maybe you don't, because that's probably the case that you've never driven one. The BMW iX is truly impressive. Yes, it is a lot of money, but man, oh man, what a driving experience this is. If you are interested in how this vehicle charges, its range, some performance driving reviews, some city driving reviews, of course, head over to the Out of Spec Reviews channel where we focus more on the actual driving. But here on the detailing channel, we like to cover the build quality. And yes, that is really what you get when you buy a BMW. Now, we've had recent cars like the i4 M50 here at the shop, the new i5 that's been out that we've done full build quality analysis on. And my takeaway from those is always, on paper, it is hard to understand and rationalize why somebody would purchase a BMW over something like a Tesla, of which everybody compares these vehicles to. But honestly, once you get past the on-paper statistics, you really understand you're buying quite one of the nicest luxury and ultimate driving machines, as BMW would tell you, but at a very high price. So speaking of price, let's talk about this one before we jump into our review. So this is the 2024 iX xDrive 50 with the 21-inch wheels. This is $87,000 as basically standard. We have a red color paint option here, driver assistance. We have premium package, sport package, a few other options here like ventilated seats, and of course your destination charge, bringing this to nearly $100,000. Now, compared to something like a Model X, it's hard to compare these vehicles to Tesla because quite literally every week they change price. But at $100,000, what I'm expecting this vehicle to be is a very high quality built vehicle with a lot of content inside. And I think from this review, you guys will understand a little bit more about why somebody would be interested in purchasing an iX over something like a Model X. So let's jump into exterior fit and finish. Now let's start up front with our build quality review. And this being a ground up EV from BMW with a unbelievably large hood like this one, you would suspect that it has a massive amount of front trunk storage, and you'd be completely wrong. BMW has almost made this to be where they don't really want anybody who owns their vehicle to be opening up the front hood here. Now, traditionally in something like a BMW on a combustion vehicle, let's just take for example an M3. In the driver's side footwell, you're going to have your hood latch. Sometimes they require you to pull it twice for safety. And this one, they really just don't want you being in the front hood whatsoever. So actually underneath the front dash, there are two little straps on the driver's side and one on the passenger side that you pull down to actually release the hood. This is more meant for service, which is a little bit strange. It's kind of one of those things of like, oh my gosh, you can't even open up the front hood. I don't think 99% of people who own the iX know where those straps even are, but a select few definitely do. Now, what you can open here on the front end, you probably can't see it up here, but it's actually hidden right here. Of course, you need somewhere to put in some wiper fluid, and what a cool implementation that is. That's very unique. Now, this iX is actually owned by my customer and now friend David, actually all the way out from Michigan. Now, if you remember the yellow i4M50 that I did last year, full build quality analysis on, that absolutely blew me away and kind of made me understand why folks go for a BMW over something like a Tesla. That was David's vehicle, and he recently just purchased this iX for his wife, and mega congrats to both of them. What a machine you got here. Now here on the front end, of course, talking about the hood, it is massively large. As you can see, spanning all the way up here, there are some interesting design characteristics, such as almost this clamshell type hood over here on the side. But then looking like right here, you almost think you're looking at something like the new M3 with these large nostrils in here, how the BMW logo sits right in the front. Now, the front end of this car is a little bit complicated, if you will. Very interesting design language with these piano black pieces here that has the air curtain to go around. And then you have this very large front ledge, I'm going to call it here, which also acts as some cooling for down low. Now, of course, the beaver teeth being controversial, they also house radars, sensors, and things like that underneath here. But what's also cool about this, which I may end up making a video on, is this grille. Now, this grille is actually self-healing, so very similar to something like XPEL paint protection film, where you can scratch it up with a wire brush, heat it out, and all the scratches are completely gone. I think that's a very cool implementation, and I asked David, because he told me about this, so why not just make the entire front end like that, so you never have to deal with rock chips or deal with scratches? That'd be kind of interesting. Maybe this is a technology you're going to see later down the line. I think that's very cool. Now, headlights here, very distinctive. They are a little bit large, but definitely long, and I think they look quite nice. Now, these do not have the laser function on this particular one. These are LED headlights. Here in the US, we unfortunately don't get matrix lights anyway, so not the end of the world. But as far as build quality, let's look at this front bumper to this front fender. Absolutely perfect fitment there. The gaps are nice and tight. The body lines fit absolutely perfect. There's no overhang right here. Looks amazing. And moving around to the front, of course, these very distinctive piano black areas, everything looks like it fits absolutely perfect. One thing that's a little strange to me, it's a unique design how basically this headlight sits almost flush here with the hood, and then the hood kind of wraps around here into the headlight and kind of gets sucked into the car. And that is the body line. So you can see the shut lines here, very tight, Same with down here. And then you get to this area and you can see how large that gap actually is on that headlight. Now you would be thinking, oh, red flag for a build quality review, but that's how BMW has designed this. You can see it's perfectly even on both sides. A little bit strange there. It's almost like they designed the front end and then they ordered headlights and they came in and they were like too small on this side. It's a little strange to me, if I'm being honest. It does look a little odd, especially considering body line here is pretty perfect with this. It just kind of stands out to me. It's not something that 99% of people are going to notice, but just wanted to notate that. Now on the driver's side here, same thing going on. Body line absolutely perfect. The bumper fits amazing with the fender. The hood runs this entire area to the back and looks very nice. Now here, window trim is always an area of issue for a ton of companies, and I'm never exactly sure why. A lot of the times I think it's just how the doors sit. These basically piano black panels on here kind of slip onto the doors, but you see a lot of areas like this that can be as an issue for other companies, but BMW just knocks this out of the park. One interesting thing I want to note, the one running below the windows here, as you can see, it kind of meets up here with the hood. This fits really nice and tight. And then you have the one that runs the top length above the windows. And you can see they don't perfectly line up. I hope you guys can kind of see that. It just seems a little odd to me. It just kind of stood out while I was looking around the car. Not a build quality error yet again. It's exactly the same on the other side. Here on the mirrors, definitely kind of small mirrors for such a large car here, but you have nice lighting, of course, as BMW does. And as you move down the doors, you start to realize how well put together this thing is. Now, of course, you have this large piano black piece that runs the entire bottom length of the side of the car, which I would say as a professional detailer is a little bit of a negative. These are going to get scratched up super easy. Even if you go to purchase something like a white iX, you have to deal with all this piano black. But I'm glad they didn't cheap out and use some very cheap plastic, if you will. Cheap and cheap, there we go. But I really love to see just the door shut lines here. This lines up perfectly all the way down. We have basically 4 different sections and it's absolutely perfect all the way through there. This is what I like to see on build quality reviews. If you've made it through at least this initial part of the video, I'm sure you're going, why are we going through this? Well, I'm gonna tell you, people do care about this. And especially people who don't buy Teslas really do care about this, such as David. He's like, you know, I understand the technology of Teslas, I get it, but I want something that's built quite a bit nicer. Now, what's interesting here on the iX is the door handles. Now, door handles are a big thing. It's your first interaction with the vehicle. Anytime, even if you're going to test drive it or just look inside, you're touching the door handles. So what's really cool about this here, there are some cool things and some negatives. So first off, you have piano black. This will get scratched up, but the nice thing is they've done a textured plastic in here. So ladies with large rings or men that wear rings, that's not gonna get scratched up. Kind of have to reach your hand up and in. You can see some ambient lighting, of course, at night that lights up. Now I will tell you that initial sound, I don't love. It sounds a little bit cheap and kind of mechanical. It's a little bit strange. Now, one thing that is strange to me is that BMW went with frameless windows here, and I'm going to show you why I think that's strange, and that is the door close sound. So it's a decent experience getting in the car, nowhere near as bad as EQE and EQS, SUVs or sedans in that case. Mercedes has the worst door handles on the entire market right now. But it's when you go to close this. I want you to keep an eye and listen to this part. So look up here when I close the door. Did you notice how that window basically flapped back and forth? When I close this, it almost sounds like a large rattle. And I can't help but think BMW would have been better off having a full framed window here, something like the e-tron has. E-tron is one of those vehicles that when I get in and out of it, I always consider it the bank vault. Kyle really came up with that, but it's just, you close that door, it sounds perfect, not a single rattle, just sounds very boom, and it's nothing else. But this, you definitely get the impression of a little bit of rattle. I get the same thing out of my Model 3 over there with the frameless windows. So again, listen to this. You can even kind of hear it. It sounds almost like a gun latching there. It is mechanical, but it sounds plasticky. And then you get this. I don't love that, to be honest. Let's try the back doors. Again, very mechanical. Let's give them a shut. That sounds way better. Why is the front door so different? We'll try the other side when we get around there. Now moving to the back here, this is where my favorite part of the iX really is. And they've done a lot of interesting design language here to make this very large SUV look modern and look very sleek, if you will. First off, starting a little bit on this rear quarter, you have this nice iX badge that really breaks up a large side of the vehicle with a lot of color. If you get something that's white, I really enjoy the contrast here. Now, of course, this is in the piano black option or black optics. I'm not sure what BMW calls it. I'm coming from the Audi point of view, but you can get kind of this like almost gold brass color on here. I believe we had it on the iX M60 we had on test. Very interesting looking. I kind of loved it and hated it at the same time, but nonetheless, moving back here to the back, more amazing things going on. Just want to show you here, this rear bumper to the rear fender, boom, absolutely perfect. Every single angle, you just move around this car, body lines are absolutely precise. You can tell that they actually have quality control on these vehicles. They go through, they adjust doors, they make sure that they're perfectly aligned. It's just so refreshing to see that. Even when you expect, I've reviewed lots of $100,000 vehicles in this case, and quite literally rare to have vehicles put together this nice. Porsche is probably the one that does it slightly better than BMW, but this is just like ultra precise. Now the back end here on the iX, I personally think looks amazing. You have the nice slender taillights, you have the accents here with the piano gloss black, then you have this very unique looking diffuser. They just made this car look so modern, so sleek, but on such a big package. Now the tailgate here, or the rear trunk lid, is quite large. So let's open this up. And as you can see, it almost takes the whole back half of the car off, or so it feels. Now the funny thing here is when this is open, I don't know what it is, but I get these Fiat 500 vibes from the slope and these two little lights. Just a little strange oddity there. Of course, since the taillights go up with the actual trunk lid, you need some sort of light, say you pop a tire on the side of the road, so BMW implemented these lights. What's also very cool about this, once you open this up, is this. This design in here is not just meant for aesthetics to look cool, but it's actually carbon fiber reinforced plastic. Now, if you don't know what that is, BMW introduced this material years and years ago with the i3 and i8. And it's a very unique material where basically they weave together plastic and carbon to make a lightweight and very structural component. And you see some more of that throughout the vehicle in the door jambs here on the side. It's very cool that even on a, I don't know what this is, but it's got to be over 5,000 pound SUV that they implement something like this. It's very easy to take sheet metal or aluminum, build all this castings and do it that way. But I just think it's very cool how they did that. So let's close this up here. Such a nice sound there. Just one single boom sounds way better than the doors over there. I'm very impressed with that latch. It's one of those weird things. Like my Model 3 over here, the trunk lid basically pulses when it comes up and then it just kind of slams down, makes a really nasty noise. It's again, those little refinements that people are paying for when you purchase a vehicle like this. Now, one thing I want to bring up again is the lighting back here. I love these lights, but there's some oddities. So if you look here how perfect everything's put together, this line and this line, absolutely perfectly precise. Then you come over here to this end and you can see quite a large gap there and you may be thinking, oh, the taillight's not perfectly in. And then you back up a little bit and realize it's designed as that way. Why is it designed that way? I don't know. It just seems a little strange to me, something that stands out. One thing that does not stand out is your rear view camera. We're very used to having this huge glob of cameras and basically where you open the trunk lid down there, but it's nicely hidden here in the BMW badge. Just a very nice little implementation there. Next, let's address the elephant in the room, the overly large charge port. Now on camera, as I'm looking through this, it doesn't look that big, but I put my hand over here and you realize, holy freaking smokes, that is massive. So first off, yes, it's massive. Second, huge props to BMW for not making this overly complicated electric crazy maneuver to just open up a charge port. I don't know why we feel in 2023 and now in 2024 that cars, because they're electric, need to have this overly complicated charge port. I'm thinking of Rivian that almost has this Koenigsegg style where it spins out and pops out at the same time. It just seems overly complicated and something that will eventually break over time. The next big props I have to give BMW is basically their charge port covers. So open that up, you now have your AC pins ready to go here. You have a nice bit of foam. It's gonna keep weather and a bunch of water and crap out of there, which I really like to see. Now again, here on the DC, you open that up. Now you have your CCS1 charging. Most cars these days, I'm thinking of my Volkswagen ID4, have this quite literally 1 cent piece of plastic that is basically held on by a hair scrunchie, if you will, that just dangles all over your paint, especially if you're outside charging, it's a little breezy. That thing just sits there and is gonna scratch the heck out of your paint. I hate how it works. It looks terrible. It feels terrible. But this is very cool to close that with just the AC. One thing I would say I would like BMW to work on is have basically your charge port door close these. Instead, it just kind of stops there. That seems a little strange to me. So that could be a little room for work on the Refresh iX if we ever see one of those. Now again, down here, perfection. I don't even know what to say honestly about the iX. The exterior fit and finish on this, I've really not found one thing that I'm like, it's out of place. Every little thing that I've talked about here is just down to design. Other than the doors shutting, I think that would be my largest negative on exterior fit and finish. But you just look at this. Everything is perfectly precise. All the way down here, the piano black trim. Come to this area where 4 basically panels are meeting together, and it is millimeter perfect, even less than a millimeter perfect. Same over here. It is absolutely dialed. It's so impressive. Again, these BMWs on paper, you're like, why would you buy them? They're so expensive. They do less range than this. They charge worse than this. They're slower than this. But then you walk around these vehicles and just understand how nicely built they are. That something you really don't get in a Tesla. Again, I'm a Tesla enthusiast. Now, one thing that does stand out a little weird to me though, is basically the panoramic glass roof and the windshield. What I mean by that is this rubber strip here. Now, what's really strange to me is the roof glass sits above the windshield. It's almost like the windshield needs to come up 2 millimeters. Now, I would say that could over time become a negative for wind noise, as I would think you'd have some pressure differences there and could cause whistles for interior intrusion there. But gotta say, the iX is an unbelievably quiet vehicle, not quite as quiet as the e-tron, but still up there in one of the most quiet vehicles you can purchase, especially sub 100 grand. Just to me with this, just looking at it, it looks kind of like this eyebrow that goes over the vehicle. You don't really get that vibe like you do in a Lucid or a Model S or a Model 3, for example, that you just have this one sheet of glass going over. So I'd like to see that massaged out a little bit. It's kind of one of those things, once you see it, you're like, ooh, that doesn't look the greatest. And I'm just curious to see over time. But as far as my review on the exterior fit and finish, 10 out of 10. Absolutely 10 out of 10. Again, this was not a car that was prepped. David did not order this in a special color. He didn't even know he was purchasing this iX. He went to his local dealership from BMW, said, ooh, I want to test drive this car, and he purchased it. This is nothing special. This is representative of what you're going to get with an iX. And if you want something that's highly, highly built, here you go. So as far as the doors here, let's open these up and chat about this quite unique and beautiful interior. Now this for me is where the bar very much steps up. So I will be giving you my opinion on this interior, but we're gonna talk through a lot of the materials, of course, but I think this will be quite a controversial interior. I've heard some folks say absolutely hate the iX interior, and then you have folks like myself that are like blown away with the interior. Now I would say one of the negatives, if you will, with BMW is you really have to spec different interiors. So it's not like Tesla where a long range Model X and a Plaid Model X of a $25,000 Delta, you get identical interiors in it. You really have to spec these things up, so it can be very spec dependent between iXs. But this one has a very, I would say, moderate interior on it. It doesn't have the full kind of high grain vegan leather. It does have Sensitech in here that I'm gonna touch on quite a bit. But what I love about this interior, it's very elegant. I get very much concept car vibes. Like it looks like this is 5 years into the future as what else is coming out of BMW. I'm just thinking like to the i4 M50, it literally just looks like a 4 Series from the last 5-6 years. Whereas this feels like a huge leap forward with its design. I just love looking at this angle and basically seeing this door panel, this even split all the way here where you have beige back here and black in front. It's very cool and very unique. Now let's start over here on this door panel. Now the door panel may look boring, and I may kind of agree, but you get this very minimalist vibe. But it's also very different to how Tesla does it. Completely different, actually, in a lot of ways. Now, first off, let's talk about ambient lighting. That's the new thing of 2024. The cheapest Model 3 now has it. Your Cybertruck has it. Your other BMWs have it. It's really starting to become a thing that people talk about. And this has to be the strangest implementation. As you can see up here, quite literally on the top of the door panel, we have an ambient light that runs on the bottom of the window. Strange, I would say. I mean, when you hop into a Mercedes now, you are in a Miami nightclub, you can barely see out of the windshield when you've got it fully cranked up, all the colors, all the things. This is very awkward location, I may say. Like, I'm surprised they didn't put it here. I understand they don't want to break up that single solid color there, but it just seems a little odd. Like, I'm looking across to the other door panel, I can't even see that, and I'm standing higher than I would be sitting in this seat. So that does feel a little odd to me. But this door panel is very unique. First off here, you'll notice at the top, we have our seat memory positions and our seat controls. For me, huge positive. As of course you guys know, I have only one right hand. So for me, any car that I'm driving, having to go down here and fumble with the seat controls can be a pain in the butt. So having that here is very cool. And I think it's also a nice premium touch that Mercedes has been doing for a while, but I'm glad we're starting to see this in other vehicles. Over here, you have your door unlatch. You have lock and lock here, a very cool implementation. Now this is basically an electronic button. There is a hard mechanical button down here or a pull that you can do that to actually open up the door if the car's 12 volt were to die. You have a very large wide door panel here. Like if you consider this compared to how large this is in here, feels very insulated, feels a little bit like a cocoon, if you will. Now over here, we have our window switches. One big positive, no piano black. One negative, BMW plastics. If you guys know this, I'm not a huge fan of their plastics. I think they really let down these cars in that way, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. But even down here on this door panel, we do have ample space. Ugh, but that plastic is no bueno for me. I am not a fan of that at all. This has been my complaint with BMWs for years. This is also my complaint even in very highly spec'd Porsche Taycans, that you have this very cheap feeling, hard, scratchy, very elephant skinned like plastic down here. Not a big fan of that. And you do find a lot of it here in the interior, but it's in spaces that you're not interacting with a lot, so maybe you can give it a pass there. Now, seats. Beautiful. I just have to say, Again, very concept vibe here. I love the asymmetric design in here. Of course, you can get many different materials. I think they have one where part of the seat is black, the other is this blue suede. Unbelievably pretty interior. Definitely you can go spec these. Very, very wild. But this is the Sensitech leather in here, which basically is a synthetic leather. Now, Alyssa alluded to in the iX, I believe it was, maybe even a year ago now, that this very much looks like elephant skin. Now, I will tell you, I much prefer a tight grain, even if it's vegan leather look like we have here on the steering wheel. So I would say Sensitech for me is a little mixed. Now, on the like i4 and lower kind of trimmed vehicles, Sensitech feels very different than the iX does. It's like they have put more foam in this, it's more plush, it's more supple. Like just this seat bolster here feels very soft. My complaint with BMWs in the past has been the Sensitech leathers, even in, you know, $88,000 i4 M50s like we just had on test. It's very hard, it feels very plasticky, it feels very cheap to me for such an expensive car. So I'm glad to see that Sensitech can be done nicely, but again, I'd still prefer this more tight grain in here. Now, a lot of you may be saying, you really have fake leather in a $100,000 vehicle? Guys, we're in 2024. Leather, in my opinion, is kind of dead. I think we need to search these alternative synthetic materials that are like leather. They wear so much better. They don't crease up quite as much. I mean, just look at this bolster. This car has 3,300 miles on it. It's not deforming. It's not wrinkling and shriveling up. They're so much easier to clean, and I think they look a lot nicer. I'm not really in it for the environmental aspect or the green aspect. I really don't even drive EVs for that. I drive them for the fun, the technology that they have in them, and I feel very much similar to areas like the seats. But I just love the seats in here. The design language is very cool. These are ventilated front seats, so very cool there. So first off, start stop button. That for me as a Tesla driver is a little bit of an annoyance. I find that I just leave the cars on, I get out and I just hit the lock button. I'm like, why is this thing not locking, or it's beeping at me? It can be a little bit strange for sure. Now, the screen on this will be controversial, and I will say that. I personally really like how this is implemented, much better than i5, even i4, other 3 Series BMWs. This to me gives the impression of it's floating. We of course have, you know, our structural braces and things back here of actually how it's mounted. But I just love this kind of 3-dimensional design that you get here. I think the screen's laid out nice. You have a nice driver screen and then all of your content over here. Of course, this has iDrive in it, which is wholly responsive. It is crazy, crazy responsive. Now down here is my one big negative of the interior, and that is just the piano black. Now I do like all of the content you actually have here. You have your quick media controls, your nav button. It's a very haptic feeling, but it's very much clicky as a button. I think once you get used to this system, if you're been in BMW iDrive for a long time, you don't even need to look at this. You're just staring out the screen or staring out the front, and it's very easy to use. The response time in the software is freaking bananas, I will say that. Moving back here, we of course have our gear selector down here now. Yeah, I don't know, some people are gonna like this, some people are gonna hate it. You have reverse neutral, and then drive, and then regen mode, which is quite neat there. You can go into my modes here, all different sorts of modes. Does this do the Hans Zimmer one? It probably does, yeah, and expressive, the crazy noises that comes out of the BMW series here. What's really strange to me is I was playing around in here earlier and I'm spinning this and I'm like, ooh, you have a nice little display of fingerprints. So this is almost like an acrylic here, and it looks 3-dimensional. It's hard to pick up on camera, but it just seems a little strange how this is just implemented. Like I'm more used to a solid button. It's just odd to watch the fingerprints. I mean, this whole thing is covered in fingerprints here, so that could be a negative for quite a few people. We have this very cool design here on the scroll wheel. It is plastic, but I do like the knurled finish. Very easy to just change your media controls very quickly. So this one is optioned with the Harman Kardon sound system. The Bowers & Wilkins in the iX is by far the best audio system I've heard in any car. The M60 we had in it, Kyle was blasting some music in it. We had it at like 60% volume and my ears were genuinely ringing. Crystal clear audio, out of this world audio experience. I was very, very much blown away. Now up here, dashboard is a very unique design and much better in my impression from the traditional 3, 4, 5 series BMWs. It looks more high-end, more high class. And what I really like is you have heads-up display that you can barely see. It's right there, but it's hidden. When you sit here, you can't even sort of see where it's at. You don't have this really chintzy looking plastic. Now I will say one thing that's going to be a negative for quite a few folks is the lack thereof of buttons. You don't have any hard physical climate control. You have to actually go into the screen. But again, the screen on this is, or I guess the software is unbelievably quick in here, which is unbelievably impressive. Now, steering wheel. This will be a controversial one. So of course, this is a 2-spoke. It's also a hexagonal steering wheel, maybe kind of not, no, it is. I'm like counting this up because we have a flat bottom here, we have a flat top, we have a flat side and another flat side. For a lot of people, they don't really like this. I know Kyle being one of those folks that's like, ooh, the steering wheel is really bad. And I actually find it quite nice. This is a perfect hand grip. The thickness of this is perfect. And then you have, you know, kind of your thumb rest here. This is okay to do. I guess you can do that if you're driving BMW, but I'm normally at the 3 o'clock here. I wish I could do 9 and 3 sometimes, but all not that bad. Let's talk about steering wheel controls. Very nice. They feel different than this, but they're a great kind of actual button. So they're not haptic, they're actual buttons, but the whole thing moves here. Now, very similar to like, I guess our ID4 implementation here, but what I like is this is not necessarily piano black. It's like they have piano black on the bottom. It's kind of similar to this, and it has acrylic at the top. So I don't think this is going to scratch up as nice. It also gives you this nice 3-dimensional effect here. Very cool. So we also have these little scroll wheels. Again, the BMW plastic, I don't know what it is about this. It just doesn't feel nice to me. So that'd be one of my complaints there, but the actual scroll function feels nice. Moving it side to side, very much easy to do. Over here, you have your cruise control settings. Those are all good. Back here, of course, very normal switchgear. Yeah, it feels BMW cheap plastic to me. Again, that's my biggest thing with BMWs is just the use of cheap plastic in areas. But I very much like on this interior how we have different materials. This cloth material up here is very cool. Now, of course, in the higher trims, this is all leather. It can be different colored leather, and it follows actually all the way down here. This kind of open area, even covering the glove box. Now, what's a little strange to me, and this is a personal preference, a lot of people actually very much enjoy this because of course this car doesn't have a prop shaft or an exhaust going out the back. You have a lot more open space. Now, I personally prefer more of a cockpit. Rivian does this, Hyundai does this, Kia does this, where you have this voluminous open space. I will say it makes the interior feel larger, but I just kind of prefer it to be closed in. But this is one of my more favorite implementations of it. Up here, we also have a little phone holder, which is, I guess, kind of a strange area. I guess you can throw the key there if you like. Definitely feels a little strange. I also, in our i5 review, said that, you know, BMW's phone key experience or lack thereof of phone key is not that great. David actually sent phone key to me for the iX, and it's been really, really nice, except for the fact that I'm detailing this and I walk away from the car and it unlocks, and then I walk up to it and it unlocks. It's very strange. It's just like on and off, on and off, on and off. It reminds me very much of Lucid. Now this area down here's a little odd to me. So we have a wireless phone heater. Yes, phone heater. We always call them that out of spec. And we have 2 cup holders. Now I will say the cup holders feel like they're so far down here. Like I think if you have kind of a tall, slender bottle, you just grab the top of it, no problem. But if you have kind of a small, I'm thinking like a Red Bull size can, I'm having to like snake my arm down here to grab it. And I would think, oh, maybe I'll just go around this way, but it's still kind of at a weird angle. It doesn't feel ideal to me. It just feels a little strange. It feels like it should be way higher. That's just my impression, one of those weird things. Again, nothing up here, no hard buttons. You do have these nice vents here. Glad to see that this gold line, a lot of this drives me nuts in cars as of late. They basically have this going through the vent and it moves and then it changes it and it looks like it's out of place. I love the iX, guys. I hope you guys are understanding this, because I'm really trying to find things that I don't like about this car. It just really ticks all of the boxes for me. I am absolutely not a big luxury car guy, but this is a car where I actually start to understand it. I've been in X5, X5Ms, and like even the XM, and at those price points, I just don't understand it. But at 100 grand, like the amount of things you get and uniqueness in this car, to me, is freaking awesome. Talking about freaking awesome, let's talk about this pano sunroof. So what I want you to notice, this is gonna be a little hard to do. I'm gonna press this button, boom. Electrochromatic roof, baby. That is just the business. So pressing this little button right here opens it back up. Now, is it as nice as the Porsche one and the Taycan where you have all the different designs? No, but this is and should be the way of the future of having some sort of shade. What I love about this, like in our ID4, we have a shade that basically rolls from back to front here, and then you lose all light. It basically just becomes a solid no sunroof optioned vehicle, whereas this still lets in some nice ambient lighting in here. It just feels refreshing. It's not just, yep, closed off, pure black headliner. I think that's really nice. We have a ton of gloss piano black up here. This isn't an area you interact with all the time, so I can kind of forgive that. It does look nice. One thing I want to say about BMWs, why is the color of this such a odd color? It has this like pinkish purple hue. Let me know in the comment section below. But I gotta say, front of the interior of the iX here, really not a lot of complaints other than just the plastics. And that plastic is here. You can see it's very textured. It's all down here. It's just hard. It doesn't feel the greatest, just my opinion. But let's hop to the back seat. Now, one thing that I'm always anxious to talk about with cars is the back seat experience. Now, of course, this is not a 3-row SUV. This is a 2-row SUV. I always allude to this. It's very funny. I see this a ton in Mercedes, especially their new EQ lineup. It's like they spend so much time in the front row of the driver's seat and passenger seat. It's like you're in first class. And then you go to the second row and it's like economy or economy plus. And then, you know, on a 3-row SUV, you go to basic economy, like sitting at the rear of the plane by the toilets. It's like nice materials, okay materials, crap materials. In the iX, they did not skimp back here. It feels exactly the same. It's a very nice place to be. Same exact material up here. Same very weird implementation of ambient lighting. Of course, have your button controls. Same cloth down here. A single window switch. Honestly, a very simplistic, minimalistic door panel. But then you come back here. One thing that I absolutely love is that the seats kind of give that bucket vibe. They kind of look sporty, but they also look elegant. Back here, you have some piano gloss black that you have a USB Type-C in both seats. And then this thing, I don't really know what you're supposed to do with this. I think you can like put a suit on this or something. I don't exactly know what you use that for. Seems a little strange. The rear seats in this, unbelievably comfortable. Perfect seating position. The material on this is very soft, very plush. You kind of sink into it almost like a little bit of a sofa, if you will. Very impressive. I also just like the design language that BMW did here, how you have this kind of rounded edge and you still get this same pattern in the seats. Very nice. One thing I will say, a little bit of a negative here, no rear heated seats in this one. I'm sure you can option it, but let's be honest. A sub $40,000 Tesla Model 3 has rear heated seats now. This is a $100,000 BMW, should be standard. I genuinely think cars above $50,000 should be a mandatory thing to have rear heated seats. That's a huge, huge miss in my point. Now here again, more carbon fiber reinforced plastic. It's the sickest thing ever. So cool. I'm glad that they do this. They don't paint over it. They're like, look at our technology. They put it right there in your face. It's so cool, so unique. Now, I will say back here, my one negative I may have, again, is that textured plastic. It doesn't feel nice. I've tried to love it. I really, really have. But this just doesn't feel great to me. It's really funny, even in the new Model 3, all of this is synthetic leather. Even down here, the whole B-pillar, all synthetic leather. Even down here on the door, all synthetic leather. It's just, this is a $100,000 car. BMW, your plastics need to be nicer. Again, I'm trying to find things I really don't like about the iX. Nothing in here creaks. Nothing in here rattles. The latest Mercedes, you go in, you touch anything on the interior. You touch that up there, any of your controls immediately creaks. It feels plasticky. It feels very cheap. You don't feel like you're getting your money's worth. In the iX, that all changes. I don't know what more to say about this car. So let me wrap this up for you guys. Let me jump out of the car and give you my final thoughts on the iX. So thankfully to you viewers, I am finishing off this video showing you the rear end of the iX instead of the front. All jokes aside, the iX, my thoughts, my feelings, my impressions on this vehicle, blown away. Really, really genuinely blown away. Again, I've had experiences with iXs in the past. We had a full top-end, highest spec possible M60 that we had here for test with out of spec. Really impressed with that car, but once I got to know and understand these cars, just making this video, washing this vehicle, getting in and out of it, it impresses me that much more. So exterior fit and finish, 10 out of 10. Again, I spent time even before I started filming this video walking around the car, which I traditionally do of like, hey, what do I see here and there? I can't find anything. And that's what I want to see. So people saying that, oh, Tesla's build quality is great. I'm sorry, when you compare it to this, not even close. I own 2 Teslas. I am able to say that. I work on a ton of Teslas here at the shop, and I see just random crap all of the time. It's insane the amount of things that you can find on a Tesla. And then you come to something like this and like everything is near perfect, except for a few things. So let me talk about those few things. Again, reiterate these that I don't like. Number one, the doors. These to me need to be framed windows. This whole rattle situation, don't love that. I really don't like that. Even this rear door, yes, it sounds better, but you still get that window just shaking in there. Again, compared to an e-tron, like the doors on that just feel so much nicer. Now, is this a little bit of a weird thing to complain about? Sure, but I'm telling you, like when you're getting in and out of the car, those things start to be as an annoyance to you. I'm not a big frameless window guy, so that's annoying to me. Second off, interior. Blown away with the interior. I would give it a 9 out of 10. The only thing dragging this interior down for me is the use of BMW cheap plastic. I'm sorry, but still, I'm gonna reiterate this point. I should not be able to walk into Tesla, purchase a near $40,000 base Model 3 and have better plastics in that than a $100,000 BMW. That being said, the interior, one of my favorites out there, genuinely one of my favorites. It's a concept car vibe. It's luxurious, it's elegant, it's minimalist, it's spacious, it's well thought out, all in one package. I'm very impressed with this vehicle. Now again, if you want driving impressions of this car, head over to Out of Spec Reviews, watch Kyle go through it, watch him go tear up a back road, plug it into a fast charger. I think you'll be pretty darn impressed with the iX. Now again, this car is hard to say, yes, you need to go buy one when you look at the on-paper stats. Arguably, this car really more compares to a Model Y when you compare the stats to it. But then considering, on the other hand, you can literally go pick up a 6-seater Model X Plaid for cheaper than this iX. It's a lot to ask for people to go that far. Now I understand, a 1,020 horsepower mom hauler, soccer mom vehicle, you can throw all the kids in there. That's pretty sweet, but this is really special. This is a special car, and I think if you're looking for special and not mundane and just pure raw horsepower, this thing really ticks all the boxes. So if you have any comments below, I'm curious to see what you guys think of the iX. If you're interested in having me detail your car, just like David that traveled all the way out here from Michigan, definitely leave a comment below. Head over to cleardetailing.com, fill out a contact submission, and I'll be sure to answer you. So thanks so much for watching another out of spec detailing video. BMW did it again. They set a benchmark, and we'll see you in the next one soon. Bye-bye.